Hi, everyone. Welcome to Authenticity with Alicia, the podcast where we explore burnout, the pressures of society, and our quest for identity and authenticity. I'm Alicia, and today we're joined by Haley Hoffer. So excited to chat with her. She's an artist and life coach, and we're just going to have a fun conversation today. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this opportunity to share my stories.
Oh, I love, and I love one, like, you have your own stories, right? But then you also use that and your experiences to also help other people, which I think is just a full circle thing. And I know something that I'm super excited to learn more about. One of the things that I'm super interested in because my brain does not work this way is the art piece. I have no creative bone in my body. And so I would love to hear how and why art is so important to you or why you think that is.
So I feel this goes down to a core belief like the fire in our hearts. Everyone at their essence is a creator in their own right. So whatever they may do, they could be a writer, they could be a cook, they could be a musician. I just happen to be more of a hands-on design type kind of thing, sculptural
Oh,
area
so
of
cool.
creativity. But I think, yeah, it all just goes back to that innate need to just come up with something to use my imagination,
Yeah.
to connect with that child-like
Oh,
energy.
I love that. And yes, I was hoping you were kind of gonna like correct me and you did of like everyone is creative in their own way. And so like when I say like, I'm not a creative person, that is not like my strength. But yes, and I agree. And I think it's something that like I've had to work on in my adult years of like refinding that childlike play, right? Like sometimes I know how my brain works. I've gotten so like build and adulting and all this boring stuff. And then it's like, oh, there was a time when like I like to color and play and be goofy and not do something in quote the right way, but just express it. And so I love that like that is actually a strength of yours. And you get to help people find their unique way of how they express that creativity.
hmm Yeah, that I feel is the biggest honor is helping people see their light.
Oh,
I feel like that's a lot of times we have such tunnel vision in our own lives where we're so focused on who we're trying to be, we just tune out everything else. And it's
yes.
good to be like, yeah, brought back to reality a little bit.
Yes. Oh, and it's so like empowering and healing. I know that's something that you use a lot in your work is you use art in a healing way. How do you like how does art help people heal?
So, this is super exciting because I'm about to embark on an endeavor with my master's going like exploring this further. And from my personal experience and then the bits of research that I've done, it's just a very cathartic process. It's our ability to transmute negative energy, experiences that we've had, traumas we've had, whatever it may be, that tension that we hold in our body. We can take that and create it into something physical, whatever that looks like. We
Yeah.
put it all into whatever it manifests into physically. It could be something beautiful, it could be something not so sightly, but it doesn't matter. It's just the point of being comfortable, not being a perfectionist, being comfortable, being vulnerable,
Yeah.
being in those spaces is very healing. It allows, you know, you to express yourself without being judged. It allows a safe space to fully embrace you. And I feel like that's just a space that we don't give ourselves as
No.
often as we should.
No, like as you're talking, I'm like, I want this space. Like that.
Yeah.
And yes, like yes, I also believe I there's so much research. You're gonna love that master program. Oh God, I want to come back to that. But yes, there's so much research about like, well, what heals people, right? And how do we move through things? And like the things that you're describing, feeling safe.
Yeah.
allowing yourself permission to let go of maybe some of our expectations, those pressures. You mentioned earlier that like the we get so caught up in the day-to-day stuff, or we might be ignoring different parts of ourselves. Um, just like allowing ourselves to play and be free and be vulnerable. Like if you take the art piece out of it, those things you just described, heck yeah, those are healing. And then you add that art to it. I can totally see how that is almost just like that avenue for people to experience those things, and how rewarding that is for you to be on that journey with folks who maybe have never really gotten those spaces before.
Yeah, absolutely. And because being with the like being neurospicy and having certain mental diagnoses, it's interesting how we resonate with people that we just see
Mm.
because we also have that within ourselves. And so then being able to bring this type of awareness to someone who is maybe more of a visual learner like myself because of XYZ reasons, it helps them connect with themselves on a different level that they didn't know existed,
Yeah.
and it becomes a very therapeutic space.
Yeah, that is so cool. And I love, you mentioned trauma earlier, and I know like by trade, I do a lot of trauma work, and how it impacts our brain and how art is able to be a vehicle. And again, that avenue for folks to heal in ways where maybe normal therapy or normal like medications, other like maybe more traditional ways of healing might not always work for people who've experienced a lot of trauma. You know, trauma can impact our brain and our memories and our how we communicate about those things. And I feel like art allows people to tap into those parts of the brain still and be able to process and heal and to understand or move through some of those things in that safe way that you give them.
Mhm. Yeah, and hopefully, like, it can be something like a snowball effect, it's
Yeah.
more about me empowering so that
Mm.
way they can go on and empower other people, and then it can
Yeah.
just be this beautiful effect that,
Mm.
trickles down to everybody and just helps humanity overall with how we are able to engage or view art. And not art as in, because when we think of art, society, I feel, has it stigmatized to something like painting or drawing,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
like it's design, it's fine art, it's fancy,
Yeah.
but there's so like love is multifaceted, art
Hmm.
is multifaceted, it's just
Yeah.
anything that we see, literally the screen in front of us, my
Hmm.
background here, everything is something that was like conceptualized, it was
Yes.
created,
Yes.
our homes that we are sitting in. Absolutely
Hmm.
everything was created. Someone planned it, put it on paper, made it into something real. And so it's just with that concept, I feel like that's such a perfect visualization that we limit ourselves and we become those walls to ourselves because if we just look around us, like we are capable of so much more than we realize. And art just has, yeah, it's just, there's so many different forms to it, you
Yeah.
know?
And it's so, yeah, and I agree 1,000%, right? Of like society has these predetermined definitions and boxes of what art is, what a creative is, what an artist is. And sounds like you get to really like break down some of those like expectations and be like, art is so vague and vast, and it can really be like an individual personal meaning that we can give it. And breaking away from, well, you have to do things these ways doesn't sound very empowering. Again, there's a time and place for fine art, right? Like that's
Oh
its
yeah.
own category. And I know there are going to be some sort like there's studies and science and like things that need to go in place for that. But when we're talking about healing and storytelling and that personal experience, you get to be a lot more flexible with not having to follow these certain predetermined rules.
Yep. That's the beauty of it too, is being able to connect with that inner child. Like I said earlier, it's just the most inspiring
Mm.
feeling,
Yeah.
I just once to be free. Like you on the inside, you just want to be free. And by able, like allowing yourself, sorry, to express yourself freely in that kind of way, whatever it looks like, it's a whole different experience that
Yes.
we just need to grace ourselves with more.
Yes. And I think it's something that's so needed because like I'm a very like logical thinker. I know there's my type A folks in that who listen to this are like, we want our list. That
Mhm.
experience, that playfulness, those are huge aspects. And I feel like especially as we get older and you know, women and adulthood, we lose a lot of that stuff. And so to be able to experience those things, to feel those things, to have that awareness, that is just so like just try you got it's a whole different experience.
Mhm.
Oh, so cool. So something that I really liked, you know, I think I say this on a lot of my podcasts. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. You mentioned grad school, or yeah, master. You're going back to school.
Masters. Yeah.
Tell me more. I think that is fascinating.
It's a low residency program. It's through Vermont Fine Arts. The low residency is going to take place out of the California Art Institute, which is super exciting because it's in LA, which my cousin lives in LA, so I get to see him.
Oh,
So that'll be sweet. But it's a 2-year program, and thanks to the military, I'm able to go and do this. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to. So
yeah,
very, very grateful.
that is so cool. So, what is the master's program going to allow you to do that you don't already do right now?
So it would allow me to work in a space as like a university professor or a museum curator. So being able to be more in like a high echelon fine art area,
Yes.
yeah, and be able to talk more, philosophy and psychology and like the art behind things and
Yeah.
like that really gets me excited and being in those spaces. So I think, yeah, I've always been drawn to like the academia world,
Uh-huh.
and it's always been lifestyle as far as being like a forever student.
Yeah. Oh, for real. And I can also
Mhm.
hear like that value that you mentioned earlier of like that ripple effect, right? Of like in an academia space, you're able to connect with maybe students and other people and then like be able to make that change and kind of like that ripple effect there as well. I can tell that's important to you.
Yep. Oh
So
yeah.
oh, that's so exciting. Well, good luck. And yeah, definitely like keep me posted on that. And if there's anything like I just want to like I like to keep up to date with folks. And if there's any new things that you end up wanting to share, like that's just so cool. And I think art in this space really connects and resonates with a lot of people. So I think that's super exciting. Well, dang, see, like I said, we're not perfect. I'm just jumping around all over. I'm like, oh, squirrel thought. I didn't want to forget that. So like I was saying before I got distracted with my thoughts, I always have folks fill out like this little podcast form so I can get to, know what we're going to talk about. And you mentioned storytelling is being
Mhm.
really important and how art can be a form of that. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that means for you?
Yeah. So I actually have a piece right now. It's called Geode Being One, and it's in honor of my stepmom, Teresa, who passed away.
Hmm.
And it's in an exhibit in Wisconsin, at River Arts. And the story, I use that as one of my main examples because it is my biggest piece. It is a life-size piece, and it's a geode that I made out of a tape model. So it started from nothing except for a drawing and then a tape model. And the story with that is the tape model was originally sitting up with arms crossed and like head down and knees
Yeah.
up to the chest. And then I had this really wild dream that involved my stepmom, who was still
Hmm.
alive at the time. And it ended up falling over that night. And when I woke up in the morning, it was in the position which it now is,
Wow.
which is laying down. And I went through a process, this entire process of completely starting one idea and then changing it and completely turning it into something different, Originally I had started with doing like so we went backpacking a lot, right? So I was going to do little scenes. I made like a little yurt and like a little
Oh,
bridge out of twigs. Yeah, so everything,
cute.
yeah, it was all miniature, and I was gonna do like the entire like her open body as
Oh,
like
wow.
landscapes, you know?
Yeah.
So that was my original idea, and she was getting really sick, and she passed away within 80 days, exactly 80 days of her being diagnosed with cancer. And so it
Wow.
was very quick, a quick process.
Mhm.
And I had another dream. I'm a dream follower. I really, since I was like wee big, I have listened to my dreams.
I
So
love it.
I had this other dream of geodes and like Pompeii victims, but I didn't know at the time they were Pompeii victims. It took me creating this to figure out what those
Wow.
were. But in this dream, I saw those, right? And so I ended up completely tearing, like ripping out the entire project, the inside, all that work that I did. It was hours of just sculpting and building
Yeah.
landscape and all these things. And so I tore that up and I made a resin, I made a mold out of crystals, like real crystals, and then I casted them in resin with mica powder for the color. And so the entire inside of the body is all amethyst crystal.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was like, and the irony behind it is she went to school to be a designer and she ended up never doing anything related to the arts. And I didn't even know the artwork that was in my dad's house. I didn't even know it was hers until she passed away.
Wow.
It was the most mind-blowing thing to me that like we could have spent so much more time connecting, I feel.
Yeah.
And, but that was the beauty of it though, was that whole cycle, the
Mhm.
entire cycle and what this represented, just putting it all together, that
Yeah.
I feel it was a beautiful experience. It was a beautiful creation. I'm really proud of it and
Mm.
really grateful to have her continuous like guidance in my life because
Yeah.
I feel like she is always like creatively with me all the time,
Oh.
you know?
Oh, that story gives me chills because like kind of like the throwback to what you said earlier of like it doesn't have to be perfect, but also like you had a plan in your head, it sounds like. You had this vision and then and like this, you put work and effort and research and planning and like all this and then to just redo it. But it
Mhm.
sounds like that's what it was meant to be, right? And like that was part of the process. And I don't hear you. Maybe you have your own like internal stuff. Maybe these thoughts were happening. If true, that's normal. But like you were like, oh my God, I wasted all this time. This was pointless. I'm a failure. It's like, this is it. And I mean, like I see you laughing, like I hope you didn't have some of those thoughts. But if
Yeah.
you did, that's normal. We all have them, right? We're human. But
Yep.
maybe on the outside of it, being able to look back and be like, I'm so proud of this. This
Mm.
was a great testament to my stepmom, who we got to connect with, ironically, like after she passed on this artistic creative level and be able to have this piece now.
Yeah. It was wonderful.
Wonderful and maybe a little stressful because I'm like, oh my gosh, if I had to redo like an entire like, oh, that stresses me out. But that's part of the process, right? And it's life, honestly. Like that's a great reminder of how life goes. Like a lot of times we have these predetermined things, and it's like, oh, life happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the whole entire concept is that anything can literally change within 1 second. Like right now, boom, something could happen. I could get a phone call, anything. There's so many possibilities, and that's why I feel it's so important to embrace the present. And that's why, like the geodes, the crystals, they're just that pressure over time, is that
Oh,
what creates that beauty, the reflection, and just being able to be present is such a gift for other people too, not just for ourselves.
yeah. Oh, I agree 1,000%. I think it really like helps us feel connected and like cared for and seen and just that presentness. And so I think that sounds like the art is a way of probably like practicing that, but also then getting to share that with other
Mhm.
people. And that's a whole different level of it.
Yep, especially in academia. I mean, there's so many different levels of art, and I absolutely love all of them.
Oh,
I'm grateful for all the different spaces that are created with art. They're all vastly different, but one thing is for sure that they all have that love
mm,
of creation, and I think that, that's what really connects us all, and it's so beautiful
it
to
is.
experience.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So if someone is like me and maybe not at the forefront thinking they're a creative, artsy person, where does someone start with starting to explore that inner child more, explore that creative piece more? Like, do you have any advice or suggestions for folks like that?
So right now I'm actually teaching this intro class, which is like perfect, like exercise for anyone to do. And it's creating collage. And there's two different options that you can do with that is the first one is you can create a collage on one side, and then on the other side, you can write a poem. And the
Mm,
poem can be about anything. You can give yourself like an intention, right? Like some sort of prompt, something you want to change, something that you feel is one of your strengths or accomplishments that you're proud of, whatever it is that you want to write about, that you can either target, your shadow type things, or you can target the light, whatever you feel capable of handling.
mm.
And then the other option is if you're feeling pretty spicy, um, you can write a letter to yourself, like your future self.
Yeah.
And then you take the collage and you find things that correlate with what you wrote, and you kind of just allow that to paint the picture of the
Yeah.
collage.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
So those are two different ways that you can go about starting to kind of tap into some of your past, present, and future feelings of self.
Yes. Oh, and I love that it's like a little bit structured. It'd be like, if you need a prompt, here's an intention, here's a letter you can do. But then like that flexibility and freedom to be like, and just like see where it takes you, right? And like that's where maybe that little stepping stone to be like, there isn't necessarily like a right or wrong, but like be open to that and see where you're being led to and like what's standing out, what's drawing out. That
Hmm.
permission piece that you mentioned earlier. That I'm a big fan. I actually do like collage. I love a good vision board. I do like
Yeah.
collages. I'm like, okay, like, again, that's a great step from personal experience. That's a great stepping point because that works for my brain. I love it. You've mentioned a couple things, and I know like you're a life coach as well, and you actually do a lot of like spiritual work in your work. And so you mentioned some dream work, or that you use dreams for yourself. And so how do you like blend the two, like the art stuff and the spiritual stuff? Is it kind of like two different camps for you, or how do you incorporate those?
So when it comes to interacting with clients, I feel I am always on a certain kind of level. Um, sorry. I completely just spaced out. What was the
You're
question?
totally good. Um, so you doing spiritual work as well as artwork. So basically, I was curious if you like blend them together, if they're kind of like two separate camps that you do.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. So that totally depends on, I was going like super deep into things.
Oh,
That totally depends on the
oh, I'm
client
here for deep
themselves.
as well. I'm curious
My
now.
brain went, whoo, okay. But yeah, that totally depends on the client and what they desire, what their goals are. There's some clients that I don't involve any, um, and that kind of guidance at all,
Mhm.
because rooted very strongly in their faith, which I completely respect. You know, everybody has the right to their own opinions and thoughts, and I have no part in judging. That's, yeah, not my space or place.
Yeah.
So if they come to me with requests of like wanting to learn more about divination or wanting to understand their intuition more, understanding, you know, how do I discern the difference between something that is anxiety or maybe just fear of being uncomfortable, you know,
Mm,
like being able to distinguish the two is very important, but most of
yeah.
us have been conditioned to feel as if it is a danger button every single time.
Yeah.
Anyway, because I digress. But like it's yeah, it really depends on the desires and where that individual is at,
Mhm,
where they would like to be met at,
mhm,
and what really what their goals are.
mhm,
Because if I feel like my experiences that I've learned regarding spirituality and the tools that I've acquired from doing those things, um, a lot of things are pretty basic, known in Western medicine too. I mean, mindfulness type stuff, that's pretty basic knowledge around here. Um, oh geez. Yeah. It all depends and would be determined based on the conversation because
yeah.
there's sometimes where it's not even in conversation because it is ostracized or condemned, depending on the viewpoint.
Mhm.
And that's totally okay. Everyone has a right to their opinion.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
sounds like people like if they maybe aren't wanting that spiritual work or in that space right now, there's still a lot of ways you can help and help with the art and other tools and skills that you have. But then if other people are interested in learning more about that or have some of those things, then you have those additional spiritual skills you can tie into that. And it sounds just like another like I like to think of like healing as like puzzle pieces. And so it's just like, you know, when you're incorporating maybe that spiritual piece in addition to some of those other things, it's just another little puzzle piece and resource that they have that they can use and explore.
absolutely. I feel like having the three is the best with results. Like I used to
Yeah.
be a personal trainer, so and being a medic in the army. So having that understanding of the
Mm.
human body in
Mhm.
all different ways and understanding the way things work on not only a physical level, but an energetic level when it comes
Yes.
to holding energy, your feelings, not expressing emotions, like those types of things affect you too. And if we don't heal like what's going on internally, it's still going to reflect externally. And we can work out all we want, but it's not going to solve the problem, and so that's why many people continue to repeat their cycles.
Yes.
They go into these hardcore, just, you know, "I'm gonna lose a bunch of weight." They lose weight,
Mhm.
"Yeah, great, good for Susie," and then all of a sudden, boom, she's back at it again. Why?
Yeah.
Because she didn't address the main issue, the root
Yeah.
cause of what got her there in the first place,
Yeah.
and that's why I feel like that spirituality part is really just faith, and to me, that's what I see it as. It's faith in self, you know, just
Mm.
me being like, "Yeah, you should see it for yourself because I see it," and helping them be like, "Okay, yeah, I see faith. I see faith in
Yeah.
myself."
Yeah.
Believe in yourself and feel it, you know, it's like
Yeah.
being able to embody both, and we all have the capability to do these things, but we just get so, like, stuffed into these boxes that
Yeah.
we have this beautiful power.
Yes. So true. Oh my gosh. No, the workout example I think is one that like we all can relate to that. And again, like that is a piece of the puzzle, right? Like if you can, you know, there's we know that you know, we get positive, happy chemicals in our brain when we do it. It can impact our self-esteem. Like we are not saying, hey, like just ignore that piece. But that's not the only piece. And sometimes, you know, I'm guilty of it too, right? I want that quick fix. I'm like, okay, I want to do something. I want to cross it off my list. And then all my problems are going to go away. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not how that works, Alicia. And sometimes we need to go that deeper route, explore those other pieces of ourselves and make that like deep, meaningful change, which it sounds like that's really like something that you're able to do with a lot of folks.
Yeah, it's really uncomfortable, and I can definitely tell right away if someone is going to be on board or not because it takes a certain level of commitment, and
Yeah,
you can always recognize when people are ready, and it's like you can't force a horse to drink water, you can
exactly.
lead it.
Yep.
But it's like you can be there for support and you can, open your doors and be a space when they're ready, but you can't force someone to change or be ready. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up too, because I think like, something I talk about a lot is good therapist fit. And really it's just like good fit with any service that you use, right? It's like you don't have to be the life coach for everybody. But you are
Hmm.
going to be the life coach for some people, and it's going to be that fit, and you're going to be like, "Oh, I can see this so well, and we vibe and we are on that same energy length." And you're open to the way that I, tackle things. Whereas like some people aren't going to be there. And guess what? That's okay. Thankfully, we're in a day and age now where there's other resources that they can do. Or if they're not ready yet, then they at least know who you are and they can come back to you when you're ready. You don't have to try to be someone you're not. They don't have to be to try to be someone they're not. It just makes sense.
Absolutely. I love that. We live in a world where, I mean, we are just so engulfed in consumerism. Everything is just like buy, 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 buy. And people are like, oh, I gotta keep clients. And I feel that is not appropriate for the way that I intend to run business. And that is, I want to empower people. I want them to be able to walk away with the tools and the knowledge to continue to pass on whatever it is to help other people too, not me forcing someone to like fit into my cultish box of whatever. Like I feel like that happens so often. Sorry, I don't like that word cultish, but like it's just that's
Yeah.
what it feels like in so many situations where people get manipulated and they don't realize they're being manipulated until after the fact. In so many different situations, even in corporate worlds, in
Yeah.
our work system. Sorry, I just keep going on and on, but
No,
it's just
preach. Oh, this is something I talk. I talk all
woo,
about workspace, and I'm like, oh, here for it. But no, you're so right. And I think it has. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think a lot of it has to do with like scarcity mindset, right? Like as a
yes,
small business owner, I don't have a guaranteed paycheck every month. My income fluctuates, and so I know I have done a lot of work to be secure in that. But I know not everyone has the same brain and context that I have. And so it's easy and understandable for people to be like, let me just take on anyone. Let me keep you here, because it's income, it's my bills. And
right.
that can get to a slippery slope. And then it can maybe make us not make the best decisions for the people that we're trying to help. And oh, don't even get me started on corporate world either. Like I've got no positive things to say about corporate stuff. But yeah, it is. It's just like that, a lot of that mindset stuff. And we kind of just like think, oh, this is normal, or okay, I'll trust you. You're the expert. You're telling me what I should be doing.
Yep,
Oh,
absolutely.
we found both of our hot button topics there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that was like that was
We
whew.
are here for the spicy. The audience likes spicy. So we like realness, right? It's
Yeah.
authenticity. Um,
Yep.
No, I do want to be respectful of your time. So I think I'm so glad we got to cover a lot of just the art piece, a lot of the identity piece, how to help, how different puzzle pieces can impact the healing process, and how I think you're able to do a lot of that as well. So we've got your contact info. So if folks are interested in learning more about how to work with you, the things that you offer, please reach out to her, and then keep following Haley because she's going to be um going to school and doing all sorts of fun art stuff, and that's so badass. Like that's just like that's so badass. The question that I always end it with is, how have you been practicing authenticity lately?
Oh, I love that. So I have been meeting with She doesn't like me to call her a guide or a mentor. She's just an individual who inspires. I like to call her my mentor, but and she's been having me practice just a plethora of different activities that have really been helping me on my journey. And one of them is addressing my fears. And I feel we get so comfortable in limiting ourselves, like was talking about earlier, but we get so comfortable being in that space of like accepting other people's fears as our own or society's fears or whomever,
Yeah.
that we create this habit that is just not truth.
Yeah.
Um, so in my everyday life, literally every day for the past like week, just being more cognizant of when I feel that fear, when I
Mhm.
maybe say no to something and question why I say no, or when I choose something bad to eat, maybe question, is this loving myself? And so, like, really getting into that habit of questioning myself on the daily and recognizing those fears has really been like deepening my experience with expressing authenticity.
Yes. Oh, I love that. One of my favorite words is intentional. Like it sounds like that's something that you're doing of like checking in with yourself and being intentional with, well, am I doing this because this is what I want or this is what I'm feeling? Or am I maybe taking on something of someone else? And am I maybe like passing along and just kind of like automatically doing things? Or am I, being really intentional with that? So that's a really
Yeah.
good practice that you've been doing for this week. And again, like it's the key word is practicing because this is a journey and it's
Oh,
hard and it's
yeah.
vulnerable and it takes effort and energy. But sounds like you've been trying and it's helped you maybe connect with some of those emotions in a different way. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Maybe that's a tool that some other folks can connect with too. Well, I so appreciate getting to know you more and just like the work that you do. I love connecting with folks whose brains think differently than mine because my brain's not the only brain out there and my listeners do not always have the same brain that I have, and so I always just love hearing how other people view the world and how they help, and I think it's going to connect with a lot of other folks as well, so thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful.
Yay. All right, folks, well, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and remember, the world needs the real you, so let's explore that authenticity together.